My wife didn't book a room for me on our vacation trip. Her friends mocked. I got my revenge. You won't believe what happened when I finally stood up to my wife. After years of being manipulated and lied to. The trip we took together was supposed to save our marriage, but what I discovered shocked me to my core. I'm about to reveal how I took control of my life, how the lies came crashing down, and how everything changed in one single moment. Stay tuned to find out how I got my revenge. I had built my life carefully, brick by brick. A successful real estate business, a beautiful house, a picture-perfect family. Everyone admired us, the power couple, the kind of life that others envied. But behind the gloss and the smiles, something was off. I could feel it. A small, gnawing sense of unease that grew with each passing day. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it after all. Everything looked perfect on the outside. But the cracks were there, subtle at first, barely noticeable unless you were paying attention. And I was paying attention. Vanessa had always been captivating, no doubt about that. She had this way about her, an effortless charm that could light up any room. I remember the first time I saw her. Her sleek brunette hair, those piercing blue eyes, and the smile that could disarm even the most guarded men. I was drawn to her, fascinated by how effortlessly she commanded attention. Over the years, that charm had been one of the reasons I fell in love with her. But lately, it felt like she was holding back. Like that smile, those sweet words, weren't meant for me anymore. She'd become distant, distracted. She wasn't the woman I had married. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just a phase, that maybe she was just busy. She had her own social circles now, her own events she'd go to without me. She'd be glued to her phone, laughing at texts she'd never share. It was all small stuff, nothing concrete, but it made me feel like an outsider in my own life. The man who once had her full attention was now a background character in the life she was building without me. Then, one evening, she threw me a curveball. "Let's take a vacation, just the two of us," she said, her voice smooth and inviting as she leaned in with that familiar, seductive tone. "We need this, Logan. It's been too long since we've spent time together." I tried to hide my hesitation, but inside, my instincts flared. Something about the way she said it, like it was already decided. Like it was something I didn't have a say in, sent a chill through me. But, of course, I brushed it off. She was my wife, the mother of our kids. I owed it to her to give this a shot. Maybe I was just overthinking things again. So, I played along. She dove into planning the trip with a zeal I hadn't seen in years. She spent hours looking up resorts, booking spa treatments, filling our closet with designer outfits. But none of that excitement was for me. It was all for the idea of the vacation itself, not for us. Not for the us I remembered. I found myself watching her, feeling more like a bystander than a participant in the plans she was making. But I kept quiet. I wanted to believe she still cared. I wanted to believe that maybe we could reconnect. The day we were set to leave, my unease grew. Vanessa was practically buzzing with energy as she packed, choosing outfits with clinical precision, like she knew exactly what we would be doing every single day. She wouldn't let me in on the details every time I asked a question. She'd brush it off with a smile and say, "Don't worry, babe. I've got it covered." It was as though she was forcing me to fall in line, to accept whatever she had already decided without a second thought. I should have known then, but I didn't. I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. She was excited. It was supposed to be a chance for us to reconnect. And yet, the closer we got to the resort, the more my gut told me this wasn't right. Something was wrong, and I was too blind to see it. We boarded our first-class flight to Bora Bora, and for a brief moment, I tried to push the unease aside. We were going to a paradise, after all. What could possibly go wrong? As Vanessa settled into her seat, her fingers flying over her phone, her lips curling into a smile at something on the screen, I tried to convince myself that maybe this was what we needed. Maybe I was just overthinking everything. When we arrived at the resort, I couldn't help but marvel at the luxury. The kind of place where the elite went to unwind, over water villas, private butlers, every indulgence you could imagine. It was beyond anything I could have imagined. The lobby smelled of salt and exotic flowers, the air thick with the scent of the ocean. For a second, I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this was the fresh start we needed. Then I heard her voice. "Oh my God, you're here." It was bright, cheerful, and so fake. I turned just in time to see them. 3 women striding toward us with the same haughty confidence that I had seen in Vanessa's circle for years. Scarlett, Olivia, and Brooke. The kind of women who live for luxury, for status, for the next social event. They were everything I had grown to despise about the life Vanessa had chosen for us. Scarlett was the ringleader, tall, blonde, and manipulative in a way that was almost too obvious. Olivia was quieter, but her air of entitlement was just as suffocating. And then there was Brooke, the youngest, who treated every moment like it was a chance to document for social media. They surrounded Vanessa, fawning over the resort, laughing like it was all part of some carefully scripted scene. Vanessa turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Logan, you remember Scarlett, Olivia, and Brooke, don't you?" she asked, as though this wasn't a huge slap in the face. I nodded stiffly, my hands curling into fists at my sides. "Yeah, of course," I muttered, feeling the walls close in around me. This was supposed to be a getaway for us for our relationship. Instead, Vanessa had turned it into some kind of luxury retreat for herself and her friends. I was just the fool who paid for it all. I felt my stomach twist as they all crowded around the lobby's plush seating area. Drinks and appetizers laid out like a private party. Vanessa was in her element, glowing, the center of attention as usual. I tried to join in, to be part of the conversation, but every time I spoke, I was met with polite indifference. The whole evening felt like a performance, and I was just the guy who didn't know his lines. Then came the jabs. Subtle at first, but each one more cutting than the last. "You're so lucky Vanessa takes care of everything," Olivia said, with a smirk that made my skin crawl. Scarlett chimed in, swirling her wine. "Let's be honest, Vanessa is the real powerhouse around here, keeping up with us and still finding time for you." They laughed, and Vanessa didn't say a word to defend me. Instead, she raised her glass. "Well, someone has to keep things running," she said, her voice airy and dismissive. "Logan has his business, but I'm the glue that holds everything together." They toasted to her efforts, and I sat there, seething, but silent. This wasn't a vacation. This was a betrayal. A betrayal so deep, it felt like it had shattered everything I had ever known about us. The realization hit me hard. I wasn't just angry. I was played. And the worst part? Vanessa didn't even care. The days leading up to our vacation felt like a slow burn, and now, as I sat in the lavish resort lobby, the flames were finally catching up to me. Everything I had been trying to ignore, everything I had pushed to the back of my mind, was coming to a head. The sight of Vanessa laughing with her friends, glowing with the attention of women who, just like her, thrived on luxury and status, made my stomach twist into knots. She wasn't the woman I married. She was a stranger, someone who used me, manipulated me, and worse yet, I had let her. The resort was gorgeous, picture perfect, like something out of a magazine. The kind of place where you could easily forget about real life and slip into the fantasy of wealth and indulgence. But as I looked around, I realized that wasn't the world I belonged to anymore. It was the world Vanessa had created. A world where she and her friends played their roles, where I was nothing but an accessory, someone to pay for their indulgence, to make their lives easier, without ever being seen as part of the equation. I was nothing more than the man who funded her lifestyle. I watched them as they huddled together, giggling and toasting like everything was perfect. They were all in their element, basking in the attention of one another. And then there was me, standing at the edges, trying to make sense of the fact that I was the one paying for it all. I had thought this trip would be a chance for us to reconnect, but instead, it was turning into something entirely different. Something that didn't have me at the center, but rather shoved me to the periphery. I felt a twinge of anger build inside me, but I shoved it down. I had to stay calm. I couldn't let her see how much this was hurting me. Not yet. If I lost control now, it would be the end of the game. And I wasn't ready for that. Not when I was still trying to figure out just how deep this betrayal went. When Vanessa introduced me to her friends, my blood ran cold. Scarlett, the blonde ringleader, wrapped Vanessa in a tight hug that almost seemed to mock me. Olivia, the quieter one, shot me a condescending smile. Brooke, the youngest, barely looked up from her phone, documenting every moment as if it were her job. They all surrounded Vanessa like she was the queen of some exclusive club. And I was just the unwitting fool who paid the dues. Logan, you remember Scarlett, Olivia, and Brooke, don't you? Vanessa's voice was sugary sweet, but I could hear the detachment in her tone. She wasn't trying to make me feel welcome. She was trying to make me invisible. I nodded stiffly, managing to force a smile. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something in me was breaking. I had always prided myself on being in control, being the one who had built everything from the ground up. But now, here I was, a spectator in my own life. Vanessa's eyes flicked to me for just a moment before returning to her friends. "Isn't this great?" she said, her voice light, almost playful. "We're all going to have so much fun together." Fun? Was that what this was? A vacation, meant to rekindle our marriage, had turned into a luxury getaway for her and her friends, with me as the backdrop. I was no longer the man she loved. I was a paycheck. I followed them to a seating area where drinks were already waiting, but the cheers and laughter only made me feel more alone. Vanessa was on fire tonight, her laughter the loudest, her smile the brightest, as though she were trying to outshine everything around her. She didn't need me here, she didn't need me at all. "You're so lucky Vanessa takes care of everything," Olivia said, swirling her wine glass. "I don't know how you'd manage without her." The words cut deeper than I expected. My hand tightened around my drink. "Yeah," I said flatly. "I guess one am." Scarlett, who was clearly the leader of this pack, chimed in. "Let's be honest, Vanessa is the real powerhouse. She keeps everything running smoothly while Logan does his business stuff." They all laughed. Vanessa didn't defend me. She didn't even flinch. She didn't have to. She was too busy enjoying her role as the star of the show. The women toasted to her brilliance, her multitasking abilities, as if it was all some game. A game where I had no part, where I wasn't even considered worthy enough to be recognized. I could feel my anger boiling over, but I swallowed it down. What good would it do to cause a scene now? I had to stay calm, keep my distance. But the distance between us was only getting wider. I could see it in her eyes the way she looked at me now. It was like I was a part of the furniture, something she had to deal with because it was convenient. Something she had outgrown, but kept around for appearances. We moved from the lobby to the restaurant for dinner. The atmosphere even more extravagant than I had imagined. The ocean breeze mixed with the scent of grilled seafood, and the soft glow of candlelight illuminated the polished wood tables. This should have been romantic, but it wasn't, not with her. Not with her friends around, treating it like a show, and me like a prop in their performance. Vanessa continued to shine in the spotlight, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, nodding at comments she didn't care about. I was just a shadow. A shadow at the table, a shadow in our relationship. Every time I tried to speak, the conversation was quickly redirected back to her, or one of her friends. Every attempt to insert myself into their world, into our world, was ignored or dismissed. And then came the bill. I wasn't surprised when it was placed in front of me. I should have expected it. After all, I was the one who footed the bill for everything. The resort, the meals, the extra rooms, everything. Scarlett leaned in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "What's the damage, Logan? Should we split it?" The words stung, but I held my ground. "No, Scarlett. I've got it." Vanessa didn't even bat an eye. "Don't be ridiculous, Scarlett. Logan's got it," she said, waving it off like it was nothing. She didn't even give me a chance to protest. I pulled out my credit card, my fingers trembling slightly, as I slid it into the folder. This wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about control. My control. For years, I had let her take the reins, let her steer our life in whatever direction she chose, without question. But tonight, in this moment, something snapped inside me. As I signed the receipt, I knew it was time to take back control. I had been living on autopilot for so long, pretending everything was fine, letting her use me like a cash machine. But not anymore. I stood up, not saying a word. Vanessa looked up, surprised, but quickly masked it with a practiced smile. "Where are you going?" she asked, her tone casual, like nothing was wrong. "I'm tired," I said, keeping my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. "I think I'll turn in early." Her smile faltered, just for a split second, but I caught it. The mask was slipping. For the first time in years, I wasn't playing her game anymore. I wasn't going to just sit back and accept whatever she dished out. I turned and walked out, the weight of everything pressing down on me, but also the lightness of knowing that I wasn't going to let her win. Not this time. Not ever again. As I made my way back to our villa, I couldn't shake the feeling that something more was coming. Something bigger than just a stolen vacation, or a betrayal at the dinner table. Vanessa had made a mistake. She had underestimated me. And that was something she would regret. Tomorrow, I was going to make sure she realized just how far I was willing to go. Because this time, I wasn't just the guy who paid for everything. This time, I was taking control. And nothing was going to stop me. I know you're wondering what happens next. Does she get away with it, or do I finally make her pay? Could this be the end of everything we built, or is there a twist we didn't see coming? What do you think? Comment 1 if you think I'm about to burn it all down. Comment 2 if you think there's another shocking turn waiting for me. The moment I walked out of that restaurant, I knew things were about to change. I could feel it in my bones, that tight knot of anger and betrayal that had been building for weeks, maybe even months. Vanessa thought she could play me, thought I would just sit there and take it, like I always had. But I was done. I had let her manipulate me for far too long, letting her use me as a stepping stone for her extravagant lifestyle while I watched from the sidelines. Not anymore. I wasn't just going to let her keep taking from me. I wasn't going to keep pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. As I walked through the resort, the quiet hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore did little to calm my mind. My thoughts were racing, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. What had just happened was bigger than just a dinner or a luxury vacation. It was about control. My control. I wasn't some fool who could be strung along anymore. I had allowed her to take the reins for too long, but tonight, I was taking them back. I wasn't going to let her have the last laugh. I walked past the pools and the private cabanas, the neon lights casting a soft glow on the paths as I made my way to the villa. I wasn't sure what I was looking for exactly. Maybe some clarity. Maybe just an escape. But all I knew was that I couldn't go back to that villa and pretend that everything was fine. I needed to think. I needed to come up with a plan. Once I reached the villa, I slipped inside quietly, careful not to make any noise. The soft moonlight filtered in through the open glass doors, casting a pale glow over the ocean. The sound of the waves outside almost drowned out the noise inside my head. But it wasn't enough. I walked over to the desk where my phone lay, picking it up and opening my banking app. I had been avoiding it for days, but now, I needed to see what kind of damage Vanessa had done. My stomach churned as I scrolled through the transactions. Thousands of dollars gone. For what? For spa treatments, extra rooms, private yacht rentals, all things I hadn't agreed to. I clenched my jaw. I had been blind to it, letting her take control of our finances without questioning it. But now, with every swipe of the screen, I could see how deep the hole went. It wasn't just the extra rooms, it was everything. Every indulgence she had planned without me. Every single thing she had taken for granted. I wasn't going to let it slide anymore. I had to act. I had to do something. I took a deep breath and set the phone down, my mind racing. Vanessa was expecting me to roll over and accept it, just like I always had. But this time, she was wrong. I wasn't the man who had put up with her antics for years. I was done being the one who paid for everything while she laughed and took what she wanted. The first step was simple. I opened the banking app again, navigated to the settings, and froze the joint credit cards. In a matter of seconds, every active card tied to our shared accounts was disabled. I could already feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. It wasn't just about stopping her spending. It was about taking back control, showing her that I wasn't going to be her ATM anymore. But it didn't end there. I knew I had to go further. I transferred the majority of our liquid savings into an account that only I had access to. Vanessa had spent years bleeding me dry, and now, it was my turn to take control. I exhaled slowly, the tension in my chest finally starting to loosen. But it wasn't enough. I needed more. I wasn't just going to freeze the cards and call it a day. No, I needed to make sure she felt the consequences. I had to expose her for what she really was. I needed leverage, and I wasn't going to let her get away with using me for her own gain. As I sat there in the dimly lit villa, I could already feel the wheels of change turning in my mind. I wasn't going to just sit back and let her win. No, I had plans that would leave her reeling, Plans that would expose her for who she really was. Vanessa had been playing her game for so long, and she was about to realize that the rules had just changed. I didn't know exactly what was coming next, but I knew one thing for sure: this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. She had underestimated me, and now, I was going to make sure she paid the price. I had the power, I had the control, and this time, I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. Tomorrow, I would make sure of it. The game was on, and I was ready to play it to the end. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The fog of uncertainty that had clouded my mind was gone, replaced by a sharpness that made everything feel real. It was like waking up from a long, drawn-out dream, except this wasn't a dream. This was my reality, and it was time to face it head-on. Vanessa thought she had the upper hand, but I wasn't the same man I used to be. I was done playing the fool. I walked into the bathroom, looking at my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, I didn't recognize the man staring back at me. I had let Vanessa shape me, mold me into whatever suited her needs, but that was over. I was reclaiming my life, and I wasn't going to let her tear me down anymore. I wasn't the passive, complacent husband who let her walk all over him. I was Logan Carter, smart, calculated, and determined. As I got dressed, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Vanessa. "Where are you? I need to talk to you." I could already feel the cold knot of anger tighten in my stomach. She thought everything was still under her control. She probably thought she could just walk in and smooth things over with a couple of sweet words. But I wasn't going to make it that easy for her. I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses. I glanced at the phone one more time, then turned it face down. I didn't need distractions. The only thing I needed was to keep my head in the game. I was going to make her feel every single ounce of this betrayal, and it wasn't going to be pretty. I made my way to the villa's kitchen, the soft hum of the air conditioning, and the distant sounds of the ocean outside doing little to calm the tension running through me. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet, but I knew I had to act fast. Every moment that went by, I could feel her grip on me tightening. But now, I held the power. I was no longer the man I used to be. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about respect. This was about taking back what was rightfully mine: my life, my dignity, and my peace of mind. I pulled my laptop out from the bag I had left beside the couch and opened it up, my fingers flying over the keyboard. I had done my homework, and I had the proof, everything I needed to expose Vanessa for the woman she truly was. The lies, the deceit, the manipulation, it was all there, neatly packaged and ready to be unveiled. First, I pulled up the financial records. I had been keeping track of everything, every unnecessary purchase, every transaction that didn't make sense. I had known for a long time that she was spending more than we could afford, but now I had the evidence to back it up. Each extravagant hotel stay, every designer bag, every trip to a spa that wasn't for us, it all added up. It wasn't just the money, it was the principle. She had taken advantage of me, using my hard-earned money as if it were her own personal bank account. And I was done with it. I took a deep breath, looking at the screen. This wasn't just about her spending habits anymore. This was about showing her that I wasn't going to be a doormat anymore. I wasn't going to sit back and let her drag me down into this mess. I was going to fight back. And this time, I wasn't going to let her win. I opened another window and started drafting an email to my lawyer. It was time to take the next step. I wasn't going to confront her face to face, not yet. Anyway, I needed to make sure I had everything lined up before I did that. So, I started writing the email, detailing everything I had discovered, every financial discrepancy, every suspicious transaction. This wasn't just a small issue anymore. This was a full-blown crisis, and I was going to take the necessary steps to protect myself and my future. As I typed, my mind raced. I could already see how Vanessa was going to react. She'd try to play the victim, try to twist everything around so that I was the one in the wrong. But I was ready for that. I wasn't going to back down this time. I had the truth on my side, and the truth was a powerful weapon. I hit send on the email and leaned back in the chair, letting out a breath. I hadn't realized I was holding. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't trapped anymore. I had control of the situation now. And the best part? Vanessa had no idea what was coming. I glanced over at my phone again. Another text. This time, I didn't ignore it. I opened it up, reading her words carefully. Logan, we need to talk. I know things have been tense, but we can fix this. Please, let's just talk. I could almost hear the desperation in her voice, but it was too late. She had pushed me too far. I wasn't interested in fixing this anymore. This wasn't just about our marriage. This was about me. About reclaiming everything she had taken from me. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into thinking I owed her anything anymore. I typed out a response. I'm done, Vanessa. This isn't just about a vacation or some money. It's about everything. I'm done being your pawn. I'm taking control of my life now, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. I hit send, the finality of it all settling in. This was it. There was no turning back now. But for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. I was no longer living in her shadow. I was no longer the fool who let her dictate every move. This was my time now. And I was ready for whatever came next. I knew what I had to do. The decision was already made. But the weight of it pressed on me harder than anything I'd ever felt before. Vanessa had pushed me too far, taken too much, and now I was going to make her feel every single ounce of what I had endured. This wasn't about a few $1,000s anymore. This was about power. About control. About taking back what was mine, and making sure she knew who was in charge. I had already made the call to my lawyer the night before, laying the groundwork for what was to come. The email I sent off earlier that day wasn't just for the record, it was the first move in a game. I wasn't going to lose. As soon as I hit send, something inside me shifted. It wasn't relief, exactly, but it was close. I had crossed the line, and now there was no going back. But I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel regret. I felt determined. More than I had in a long time. The morning was quiet. The sound of the ocean crashing against the shore seemed distant, almost muffled. Like the world outside was becoming irrelevant. Everything that mattered now was right in front of me: Vanessa. The betrayal, the lies, and what I was going to do next. I was done being the man who quietly watched as his life was slowly chipped away. This was my moment to take back what I'd lost. I spent the rest of the morning pacing the villa, trying to keep my mind focused. My thoughts bounced between anger and clarity. I had to be careful. I couldn't just lash out in the heat of the moment. If I wanted this to work, one had to keep my emotions in check, had to play it smart. I wasn't going to let Vanessa twist this around, spin her version of events to make me the bad guy. I had the upper hand now, and I wasn't about to let her take that away from me. I grabbed my phone, opened the bank app again, and scrolled through the transaction history. Seeing it all laid out in black and white was a gut punch. How had I not seen it sooner? All those little purchases here and there, the extra rooms, the lavish dinners, the spa treatments. All of it was on me, and I hadn't even known it. But now I had the proof. I could see exactly what she had done, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I snapped a picture of the screen, making sure I had every bit of evidence I could possibly need. I didn't know how this would all play out, but I sure as hell wasn't going into this blind. I had learned the hard way that if you didn't protect yourself, no one else would. Vanessa had spent years manipulating me, taking advantage of my trust, of my loyalty. She thought I wouldn't notice, thought I wouldn't care, but I noticed, I cared. And now, she was going to feel it. I stepped outside onto the private deck, the sun beginning to rise over the horizon. The ocean stretched out before me, beautiful and vast, but I couldn't enjoy it. Not today. Today wasn't about escape. It was about facing what was right in front of me. The woman I had once loved, who had once been everything to me, was a stranger now. The illusion of the life we'd built together was crumbling before my eyes, and I couldn't pretend it wasn't happening. As I stood there, looking out over the water, I felt a shift in my own mind. I wasn't just angry anymore. I wasn't just hurt. I was cold. Calculating. I had come too far to back down now, and I wasn't going to let her walk away from this unscathed. She had treated me like a fool for far too long, and now it was time for her to understand what it felt like to lose control. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Vanessa. Logan, where are you? I know you're upset, but we really need to talk. I could hear her voice in my head, sweet, pleading, as though she was still the one in charge. She probably thought I'd just come running back to her, ready to smooth things over like nothing had happened. But that wasn't going to happen. Not anymore. I typed out a quick response. I'm done, Vanessa. We're done. I'm not going to be your punching bag anymore. The money stops now. Everything stops now. I hit send, not bothering to read it again. There was no need to second guess myself. She wasn't going to get a chance to manipulate me this time. This time, I was the one making the rules. I wasn't going to be her puppet anymore. I wasn't going to let her play me. I was done. The message was sent. The die was cast. Now, it was time to wait and see how she would react. I had no idea what would come next, but I knew one thing for sure: Vanessa was about to realize just how much she had underestimated me. And when the dust settled, I would be the one standing on top. The air inside the villa felt heavier as I stood there, staring at my phone. Vanessa's response was everything I expected it to be: pleading, defensive, and filled with the kind of manipulation she had mastered over the years. Logan, I don't understand why you're doing this. We can work things out, I promise. It was always the same. She never saw the real issue, always deflecting, always pulling at my emotions to make me feel guilty. But not this time. I wasn't buying it anymore. I read the message over and over, feeling my jaw tighten with each word. The anger that had been simmering inside me for weeks, months even, was finally boiling over. She thought she could fix this with a few empty promises, like she always did. But she was wrong. I was done being the nice guy. I was done being the one who always gave her the benefit of the doubt. Every time she said we could work things out, it only meant I was the one making sacrifices, while she took what she wanted and gave nothing back. I turned my phone off, the silence almost deafening in the stillness of the room. I had to act fast. I had already made my move financially, freezing the accounts, and transferring everything into an account I controlled. But that wasn't enough. I knew Vanessa, and I knew how she worked. She would try to play the victim, twist things around to make me look like the villain. She always did. It was her go-to tactic, and it always worked because I let her. But not this time. This time, I was going to expose her. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative anymore. I stepped outside, the warm ocean breeze carrying the faint scent of salt and jasmine. It should have been calming, but it only made the tension in my chest grow. My mind was racing, thinking through everything I had learned about her, everything I had been too blind to see before. The lies, the manipulations, the money, the vacations, all of it had been a carefully crafted illusion. And I had fallen for it. But not anymore. I had the truth now. And truth was a weapon. I made my way down to the resort's private beach, each step feeling like I was walking further away from the life I thought I knew. The sand felt cool beneath my feet, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore mixing with the pounding in my chest. I needed to think, to figure out my next move. I had already put things in motion with the bank, but I couldn't stop there. This wasn't just about money. It was about everything. The way she had treated me, the way she had made me feel like I was nothing more than an ATM, the way she had chipped away at my sense of self, until I didn't even recognize who I was anymore. I wasn't that man anymore. I pulled my phone back out, searching through the notes I had made over the past few days. It wasn't just the financial stuff that bothered me, it was everything. The late-night texts she'd gotten from her lover, the secret meetings she'd arranged, the way she had manipulated our daughter, Carter, to take her side in everything. The truth was right in front of me, all laid out, and Vanessa had no idea what was coming. I had been gathering evidence for months, every conversation, every lie, every shady deal she had tried to pull. Now, I had it all in one place. All I needed was the right moment to strike. I glanced over at the luxury villas lining the beach, the sun beginning to set in the distance, casting a warm, golden glow over the ocean. For a second, it almost felt peaceful. Almost. But then I thought about Vanessa, about how she had completely underestimated me, how she had thought I would keep letting her take from me, keep letting her control every aspect of my life. She didn't know who she was messing with. I looked back at my phone and started drafting an email to my lawyer. This wasn't just about getting out of this marriage. This was about making sure Vanessa never had the chance to do this to anyone else. I was going to expose her. Make sure the truth came out so that she couldn't spin her lies anymore. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into thinking I was the bad guy. She had done far worse than I ever could. I hit send and took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to do settle on me. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be quick, but this was the right thing to do. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about making things right. It was about making sure I never let her control me again. As I stood there on the beach, looking out over the ocean, I finally felt a sense of relief. The battle wasn't over, but I had taken the first step. The truth was on my side. And no matter how much Vanessa tried to spin things, she couldn't escape it. The tables had turned, and she was going to have to face the consequences of everything she had done. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was living again. The moment I hit send on the email to my lawyer, I felt a strange sense of finality. It wasn't just the end of something, it was the beginning of something new. I knew that Vanessa was going to fight back. She wouldn't take this sitting down. She'd try to twist everything, spin it all in her favor. But I wasn't scared anymore. This wasn't just about winning the fight, it was about taking control of my life again, reclaiming my dignity, and making sure that I wouldn't let her use me one more day. I was ready. I had the evidence. I had the facts. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was the one holding the cards. I paced around the villa, the weight of everything settling on my shoulders. The beautiful surroundings didn't matter anymore. The luxury of the resort, the private beach, the stunning views, none of it could distract me from the task at hand. Vanessa had built her entire world around manipulation and deceit, and I had let her. But now, I was seeing things clearly. The mask she had worn for so long was finally slipping, and I was going to make sure everyone saw her for who she truly was. The phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of my thoughts. Vanessa. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't sure what I expected, but whatever it was, I wasn't ready for it. The message was short and simple: we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. Out of hand? The nerve of her. She was the one who had made everything spiral out of control, not me. She had lied, manipulated, and used me for her own gain. Now, when the tables were finally turning, she was playing the victim. I could almost hear her voice in my head, the calm, collected tone she always used when she wanted to manipulate me into believing everything was somehow my fault. But not this time. I wasn't falling for it anymore. I took a deep breath and called my lawyer. I couldn't wait around for Vanessa to work her usual charm. I needed to make sure everything was lined up, make sure I had all my ducks in a row before she came at me with whatever plan she had cooked up. The lawyer answered on the second ring. Logan, I got your email. You did the right thing. I could hear the reassurance in his voice, but I wasn't quite as calm. I was about to take a big step, and there was no turning back now. I'm ready, I said, my voice steady despite the nerves bubbling under the surface. What's next? We'll start gathering the evidence. The transactions you've sent me are just the tip of the iceberg. We'll make sure everything is documented. Then start the process to freeze her assets. She won't be able to touch anything until we get this sorted out. It felt good to hear him say that. It felt like the first real move I was making, and it was mine. I wasn't waiting for someone else to solve this anymore. This was on me, and I was done being passive. It was time to stop reacting to Vanessa's games, and start taking control of the situation. After I hung up, I walked over to the large window that overlooked the beach. The waves were crashing in the distance, and for a second, I allowed myself to take it all in. The view was breathtaking, and in that moment, it almost felt like everything would be okay. But I knew better. This wasn't about some idyllic vacation anymore. This was about something much bigger. I had to face Vanessa, and I had to be ready. I knew she would be mad. She would try to manipulate me, try to make me feel like I was the one in the wrong. She'd tell me I was overreacting, that I didn't understand what was really going on. But I wasn't going to let her pull the wool over my eyes again. I had seen the truth now, and it was undeniable. The lies, the manipulation, the way she had treated me, it was all coming to light. And this time, I wasn't going to let her talk her way out of it. As the day dragged on, I kept thinking about the confrontation that was coming. I wasn't sure when it would happen, but I knew it was only a matter of time. Vanessa would come looking for answers, and when she did, I would be ready. I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to let her talk circles around me, make me feel small, make me feel guilty for finally standing up for myself. The clock seemed to move slower than ever, each minute stretching out, as if the universe was giving me time to prepare. But I was already prepared. I had made my choice, and now it was time to see it through. Vanessa had spent years controlling this narrative, but not anymore. Now, the truth was mine to tell. As I walked back to the villa's living room, I saw Vanessa standing in the doorway. Her arms crossed, a look of annoyance on her face. For a split second, I felt a pang of what could have been. But that feeling was gone as quickly as it came. This wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with. This was someone else. Someone who had used me for years and thought she could keep getting away with it. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off before she could say a word. "This ends now," I said, my voice firm, unwavering. "I'm done being your pawn." The moment I stepped into the villa, I could feel the tension hanging thick in the air. Vanessa was standing by the window, her arms crossed over her chest, looking out at the ocean. She heard me enter, but didn't turn around right away. I could see the way her posture stiffened, like she was trying to compose herself before facing me. I'd seen this before. This was her routine. She liked to play it calm, like everything was under control. But deep down, I knew it was all an act. The facade she had worked so hard to build was starting to crack, and she could feel it too. "You wanted to talk?" I said, my voice low but firm. The words were more of a challenge than a question. I didn't need to ask. I already knew what was coming. She would try to sweet-talk her way out of this, twist things around to make me the bad guy. But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. She slowly turned, that practiced smile creeping onto her face. The one that had once made my heart skip a beat but now only made me want to gag. "Logan," she said, her voice smooth, almost sugary sweet. "I know things have been tense, but we can fix this. We've been through worse, right?" I wanted to laugh. "Fix this?" I repeated, stepping closer. "You think you can just walk in here and fix everything like it's no big deal?" I shook my head, disbelief mixing with the anger simmering inside me. "You've been lying to me for months, maybe even longer. And now you think a few words are going to make it all go away?" Her smile faltered, just for a second, but she recovered quickly. "Logan, you're overreacting. We've been through tough times before. We can get through this like we always do." She moved toward me, reaching out like she was trying to calm me down, but I pulled back. I wasn't falling for it this time. I took a step back and folded my arms across my chest. "No. This is different. This isn't some petty argument we're having. You've been draining me dry, Vanessa. Not just my money, but my time, my energy, my trust. And for what? So you could live a life I wasn't even a part of? So you could lie to my face and pretend everything was fine." I could feel my chest tightening as the anger bubbled up again, but I kept it in check. I had to stay in control. I had to make sure she saw this wasn't the same Logan she had been walking all over for years. Her eyes narrowed, and for a split second, I saw something flash across her face, something that wasn't just irritation. It was fear. I wasn't sure if she was scared of what I might do next, or if she was just beginning to understand how much I'd finally had enough. But it was there. And that was enough to make my heart race. I was done being her pawn. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. "Logan, stop being dramatic," she said, the fake calm in her voice making my blood boil. "You're blowing things way out of proportion. We've always had ups and downs. This is just another one of those moments. We can work through it, like we always do." I stepped toward her, my voice dropping lower. "No, Vanessa. This isn't just another moment. This is the moment. I've let you use me, let you walk all over me for years, but not anymore. I'm done. I'm done being the guy who you can take advantage of, just because you think you can." I paused, letting the words hang in the air between us. "And you know what? I'm not going to fix this. You broke it. And you'll have to deal with the consequences." I could see her face redden, the mask slipping, revealing just a hint of panic behind those cold blue eyes. She wasn't used to being called out like this, wasn't used to someone actually standing up to her. The power she had held over me for so long was slipping away, and she could feel it. "Logan, you don't know what you're doing," she said, her voice shaking slightly now. "This isn't the way to handle this. You're going to regret this." I shook my head. "I'm not going to regret anything. What I regret is letting you walk all over me for so long. What I regret is thinking I could trust you. You've made your bed, Vanessa. Now you'll have to lie in it." Her eyes were wide now, her lips trembling as she took a step back, trying to compose herself. "You can't just throw everything away," she said. but her voice had lost some of its edge. The confidence starting to crumble. We've built a life together. We have a family. You can't just. I cut her off, the words coming out sharper than I meant. No, you've built a life for yourself. And I've been living in it. Pretending everything was fine while you took whatever you wanted. I'm done being a part of your little game, Vanessa. I'm done pretending that I don't see what you've been doing. The silence between us felt suffocating. I could see her trying to gather herself, trying to come up with some excuse or explanation that would put the blame back on me. But I wasn't having it. I wasn't falling for the act anymore. I turned and started toward the door, not looking back. You wanted to talk? Well, I've said what I needed to say. I glanced over my shoulder, locking eyes with her. Good luck, you're going to need it. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need to. I had said everything that needed to be said, and now it was time to move on. The real battle was just beginning, but this was the moment I took back my life. And Vanessa had no idea what was coming. I walked out of the villa, the cool ocean breeze brushing against my face, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside me. The weight of everything I had just said to Vanessa lingered in the pit of my stomach. But it wasn't a weight of regret, it was a weight of liberation. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, wondering what she would do next or how she would twist things to fit her narrative. I had finally spoken my truth, and now I was free from the prison of lies I had been living in. But freedom came with its own set of challenges, didn't it? As much as I wanted to believe that walking away from that conversation was the end of it, I knew better. This wasn't just some petty argument. This was war. Vanessa wasn't the kind of person who would let go of control so easily. She was going to fight back, and I had no idea how far she'd go to make sure she came out on top. But I wasn't going to sit idly by and let her continue to manipulate me. Not anymore. I didn't even care about the resort anymore. Didn't care about the pristine beach or the 5-star amenities. None of it mattered. I just needed to get away, to be alone with my thoughts. I headed to the farthest point of the beach, the one that seemed abandoned, where the waves crashed against the jagged rocks in the distance. It was the perfect place to clear my mind and think through what was coming next. The reality of what I'd just done started to settle in. I had taken the first step, but it was only the beginning. Vanessa wasn't going to let this go. She would fight, claw, and do whatever it took to turn this back in her favor. She had a way of spinning things, making everyone think she was the victim when she was anything but. And I couldn't let that happen again. I sat on the rocks, my mind racing. It wasn't just the financial manipulation, the lies, or the betrayals. It was everything. The way she had chipped away at me over the years, the way I had let her. It wasn't until now, until I took that step and stood up to her, that I realized how much power I had lost in our marriage. How much I had let her control everything from the way I spent my money, to the way I spent my time. How had I been so blind? I had let her take my dignity piece by piece, and now it was time to take it all back. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't just walk away, ignoring everything she had done. I needed to make sure she felt the weight of what she had done, too. Not just emotionally, but financially, legally. I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed after all the years of manipulation. She had played the game, thinking she could control me. But now the tables had turned, and I wasn't going to let her ruin my life any longer. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, staring at the screen for a moment. It was a simple text from my lawyer, confirming everything was in place. I had already taken the necessary steps to lock down our finances, freeze the accounts, and ensure that Vanessa couldn't drain another cent from me. But that wasn't enough. Not by a long shot. I had to make sure I had everything documented. Every lie, every deceitful move she'd made. It was time to expose her for who she really was, not just to me, but to everyone. The next few days were a blur. I spent my time going over every transaction, every conversation, every piece of evidence I could find. My lawyer had already started the process of gathering everything, and now I was ready to take the next step. I wasn't just going to go after the financial side of things, I was going after her reputation. The lies she'd told, the affairs she'd had, the way she had manipulated everyone around her for years, it was all coming to light. Vanessa had always painted herself as the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect woman. But behind that facade was a woman who had used her charm to get whatever she wanted, regardless of who she hurt in the process. And that was the part that made my blood boil. The way she had manipulated our kids, especially Carter. The way she had twisted him into believing that I was the bad guy, that I was the one who didn't care about the family, while all along, she had been the one undermining everything we had built. The betrayal was deeper than I had realized. It wasn't just about money, it was about trust, about the way she had broken me down until I didn't even recognize myself anymore. But I wasn't going to let her do that to me anymore. I wasn't going to be the man who let her pull the strings. The day of the hearing arrived, and I found myself sitting in the cold, sterile courtroom, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what Vanessa had planned, but I wasn't scared. For once, I was in control. I had the evidence, I had the facts, and I was ready to tell my side of the story. It was time to let the world see who Vanessa really was. The proceedings started, and the tension in the room was palpable. I could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on me. But I wasn't nervous. I wasn't going to let her manipulate the situation again. When my lawyer stood up and began presenting the evidence, every text, every email, every document I had gathered, it felt like the air shifted. Vanessa's confident facade began to crack. Her lawyer tried to spin the narrative, tried to paint me as the villain, but the truth was right there, undeniable. With each piece of evidence that came to light, I could see her reaction. At first, she tried to hide it, tried to maintain her composure. But slowly, the fear started to seep through. Her eyes flickered, her body language stiffened, and for the first time, I saw the woman who had once held all the power in our marriage shrink before me. She couldn't control the situation anymore. The truth had a way of breaking through, and Vanessa wasn't prepared for it. By the time the judge called for a recess, I was exhausted but satisfied. The ball was in my court now, and there was no turning back. I had made sure that she couldn't escape the consequences of her actions. She was going to have to face everything she had done, and no amount of manipulation was going to change that. I didn't need to win this fight to feel victorious. The real victory was in knowing that I had finally taken back control. You're not going to believe how this story ends. After all the games, the lies, and the betrayals, I took back what was mine. But there's more you don't know. Will I walk away, or will everything come crashing down on her? The truth's about to come out, and trust me, you'll want to hear it. Stay with me to the end to find out who really pays the price. In life, we often let others take advantage of us, thinking it's the right thing to do. But I learned the hard way that standing up for yourself is non-negotiable. You have to take control, even if it means confronting uncomfortable truths. Whether it's about finances, relationships, or personal integrity, don't let anyone manipulate you into thinking you don't deserve respect. The truth will always come to light, and when it does, you'll be ready. Take control of your own life before someone else does it for you.